And good morning, world. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of April 2019. It's about 8:30 in the morning UK time. The sun is in early Taurus. It was conjunct to Uranus about 8 hours ago. Changes in the air. The moon is in Sagittarius. It will land on top of Jupiter in about 6 or 7 hours' time. Seems to me that change is a major factor of the times we live in at the moment. Unfortunately, much of the change that's going on is not to all of our likings. Whether it be the atrocities such as the recent massacre in Sri Lanka, or whether it be disasters such as the fire at Notre Dame, or whether it be excuse me being crude, the absolute balls ups of political systems around the world, whether it be the complete collapse of political trust in the UK, where no one just trusts politicians anymore, or in America, where things are so polarised now that there appears to be no way back. It seems that wherever we look in the world at the moment, there's discord. And this is not something, unfortunately, that's going to change in the immediate short term. There's plenty of happiness around there, particularly in individual lives. But it's not really being represented onto the world scene. And the single worst facet of the whole lot is that there seems to be the blame game. Now, when it gets to things like atrocities, yes, of course, there's always going to be someone or some group or organisation who commits atrocities on another. And their blame and and the naming of people, that's fair enough. But when it comes to things like trying to blame others for one's own misfortune, trying to blame other people for their political viewpoint or their economic stance, blame seems to be the single biggest feature. It's always somebody else's fault. And blame is perhaps one of the worst inventions that humankind has done to each other. Why should there be blame? Why cannot people just say, okay, look, this is the way it is. Let's work with it. Let's talk about it. Let's try and move on with it. All of this, astrologically, as many of you know, I've been doing videos a long time now. And I've been doing astrology 40 years plus years now. And I've been watching long term, the large scale, the long term, the big cycles gathering in intensity and speed. And over the decades, there's been trigger points, whether it be eclipses, grand crosses, grand conjunctions. But the escalation of intensity seems to be growing. As a few of you know from my videos long ago, I'm really an eschatologist. I like, in my spare time, studying things like the acceleration of evolution. And it seems to me now that we are approaching critical mass point. In a number of years' time, single years probably, we're going to reach some type of either breakdown or breakthrough point collectively, which is then going to see the collective consciousness of the planet shift in a way that will be both permanent and irrevocable. And astrologically, the key for this seems to be the upcoming conjunction of Saturn, Pluto and Jupiter when it moves into Capricorn. And indeed, it's particularly poignant at this time to be talking about this because as I speak, Saturn will go retrograde in 6 days' time. Pluto will go retrograde in 1 day's time. And at the moment, Saturn and Pluto are only 3 degrees apart in the sky in early Capricorn. They are conjunct. So with Saturn conjunct Pluto, 3 degrees apart, with the Sun conjunct Uranus today, it seems perhaps a good time to reflect on where we are collectively from an astrological perspective and see what's coming up. And unfortunately, in the short term, it's looking rather messy still. At the start of this year, I did say to a lot of people that this is going to be a tough year. It is. I also said that the hardest time of the year would be February and March, and so far and this was right, with that stinker of a Mercury retrograde. What's coming up in the future is not so much long, enduring periods of challenge, stress and problems. No. What's coming up instead is further trigger points. Perhaps the one I'm figuring most of all is the time in about 6 to 7 weeks from now, when Mars will be in the second half of Cancer and it will oppose Saturn and Pluto. And I will be focusing on that the more we get into the early part of June. But looking at the big picture, looking at the overall, Saturn conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, it's calling for us to completely restructure our systems of organisation, whether it be in terms of corporate structure, governmental structure, economic structure. When we get comedians being elected to run a country 20 times bigger than Britain, as is happening in Ukraine, when we get incredibly effective and extremely positive protests that paralyse central London for days at a time, mainly powered by very, very young people, 16-year-olds, around climate change. A lot of you will disagree with me on this, but I can't help feel enthused by this because they're fighting for our future collectively. So there is hope here, but it involves restructuring the way we live. And Saturn conjunct Pluto is saying the old systems of patriarchal organisation are basically done. And there's a call now for new systems of organisation that has a more greater collective responsibility. We've always elected people to govern for us because we've been too busy working in the fields, working in the factories to care about affairs of state. Increasingly now, as intelligence is rising, as more and more people have access to information, so we all want a say in what is happening in our world. So I can't help but feel that the Swiss model of collective referenda is going to become more and more the ideal, and that the days of one party or another party saying, yes, vote for us and we'll do it this way, are coming to an end. I hope so. And moving on from Saturn Pluto, perhaps this is also representative of Uranus in Taurus. Uranus has flirted with the start of Taurus for a long time now, but now it is in Taurus and getting stronger. And particularly today with the Sun conjunct Uranus, we're in a position to start assessing the very first impacts of Uranus into Taurus now and seeing how values and value systems are changing, collectively and individually. I'm on the inside looking out. As I get older, things that used to be important change. Things that weren't important become more relevant. And whether that's a process of age or whether it's in relation to the times we live in, I'm on the inside looking out. I can't be objective about my own processes. But from a collective perspective, bearing in mind that I've been studying astrology since the mid-1970s, I've seen so much change technologically, spiritually, environmentally, and in terms of population and the way that the planet is run, that it seems like we're on an accelerating evolutionary curve which is gaining speed and approaching some type of prime vertical. So, I expect this pace of intensity to continue in the short to medium term. But I also expect that as we get into the third quarter of this year, some type of metamorphosis, some type of shape-shifting is going to occur, some type of kind of alchemy, where the intensity is going to be so fast that the pressure for change will become so intense that almost unwillingly, without realising it, certain systems are going to morph and change into a way that is going to become more, hopefully, representative of collective concerns. It seems increasingly that governments and various regulatory authorities are completely out of touch. No one has faith in politicians or belief in politicians anymore. And why should we give politicians permission to run our lives for us. Things are changing. I'll be discussing all this tonight. I'm going to be talking with numerologist Richard Abbott at the Cafe 1001 in the iconic address of Brick Lane in East London. So if you're in East London, you want to see me live on stage discussing the future and interactive with the audience. There's going to be a lot of interactive stuff going on. It's 91 Brick Lane, East London, tonight, starting around 6:30, 7 o'clock. And yes, I'm back doing videos. And I'm back doing emails. So I'm going to be catching up today on a lot of emails that people have been hustling me about and outstanding. So hopefully this is the start of a new surge of videos for me. Catch you later, world. Bye.